Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks. Some would say the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. Some would say. Today, Kyle continues to be abducted by Australians. So I brought on the great Sheng Peng of San Jose Hockey Now. We're going to talk about Bordeleau. We're going to talk about the Sharks search for a new GM and whatever floats Sheng's boat as the season finally, mercifully, is almost at an end.
I don't know how you can say premiere without your co-host. I mean, it's just you, right? So
it's just me. Well, we know the engine that runs this. So all right, let's do the music and we'll get into it.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm JD Young. Thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, the one and only Sheng Peng of San Jose Hockey Now decided to slum it with me today because as boring as the Sharks season's been, there's actually a lot of interesting stuff going on with the Sharks. Sheng, buddy, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Don't mind me staring at the camera vacantly. Practicing on being on TV. I've learned different things. Like, for example, end of your segment, make sure to look at your camera for 5 seconds before you cut off the.
Yes.
So things like that. So that's why I'm staring vacantly into the camera just to practice these things.
Yes, I know. We're learning that stuff on the fly here. But, I mean, I guess let's start with Bordeleau because I think he's kind of been, Sharks fans have been a buzz about Bordelau's debut. He debuted over the weekend. But let's kind of start with him coming over from Michigan and starting with his amateur tryout. Why did the Sharks go with the amateur tryout to literally like 3 days later be like, screw that, let's give you your ELC? Was there talk of trying to get him signed to his ELC earlier, or what do you know about this?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. It was always my belief.
Get off there. Let me find someone else who does.
Oh, fine. Go find another insider. It's fine. I got to go eat dinner anyway. So it's 7:30. So anyway, it was always my belief that the Sharks were going to bring him in this year. I actually was a little surprised that they started with the ATO. Anyway, one thing I did find out, I checked on this. Some people asked about it. Was could Bordeleau have gone back to Michigan after the Barracuda games? The answer is no. Once he plays in a pro game, he cannot go. There's no wiggle room with that. So that just is one detail that I did figure out, which is not answering your question, but to try to answer your question, it's something that I will try to figure out. But it is kind of an academic question, though. The way I figure it, it's possible that they just wanted to make sure that he was sort of ready, that he was comfortable. Because to go from the NCAA straight to the NHL, it's a big leap.
Yeah.
So why not have a couple kind of transition games in between? You go from the NCAA to the AHL to the NHL. I don't know. I actually do not know for sure on that, but that's kind of what makes sense to me. One thing that I'm fairly sure about, though, is that this ELC was sort of decided beforehand. It's not one of those things where the Sharks somehow got talked into. I think the conspiracy theorists or whatever online, they're like, oh, this is the Sharks burned 1 year of his entry-level contract. How ridiculous. That's the price of negotiating with the NCAA prospect. NCAA prospect can become a complete free agent at the end of his senior season. And also, too, Bordeleau had the option of just simply going back to Michigan for his junior year. So that's the kind of negotiating leverage that he had. And so it's very commonplace for college prospects to get that year burnt off. And so that really is no big deal at all that the Sharks did that. Ideally, of course, you want to keep every year as ELC for a full playing season like the Sharks are doing Willie Mecklin, but it doesn't always work out that way. We'll figure that out later. But I asked Bordeleau about it directly. He's been very evasive about anything contract, whatever, right? Like, look, for example, after his pro debut, I asked him straight up, look, like, are you, he's had 3 assists, had a great game. Like, look, is the door closed on you playing this season with the Sharks? and he said something like, "We'll see what the future holds." Like, come on, dude, you knew you were coming. So anyway, though, so
he's very polished. When I interviewed him, I noticed that he's very polished already. Like he's going to give you exactly what he wants to give you. So
yeah, you know what? And more power to him.
Mhm.
That's his prerogative. Also, of course, his dad was an NHL player, so maybe that helped with that sort of that media training or whatever, having a sense of the media and what to say to them. But anyway, so we'll find out a little more about that. But to me, it's still a fairly academic thing. It's I don't know how many Sharks games he actually missed. Right, there was a Nashville one, maybe 1 or 2, right? So
yeah,
that he
too.
might have missed to play for the Barracuda, but. It's not a big deal. Either way, that year was getting burned off no matter what. At least that's my impression. And so we'll figure it out. But, it's like I said, it's one of those academic points, just like whether or not he could have returned to Michigan after his tryout or if he's stuck with the tryout. There's just academic points in the end.
Yeah. And again, it's for these guys, it's trying to get this year burned off. It's one step closer to a bigger payday for them where it's, you're going to get that real contract in 2 years now instead of having to wait a full 3 years. And, more power to him to try to get his money when he can, especially with, not being able to sign it and stuff like that. I wonder, this is just me speculating. You wonder with the NIL in college, if NCAA and NHL might look at this rule. Apparently, about like college athletes being able to sign their contract, especially with the NILs. That's another topic for the summer to discuss. But,
yeah. I'm curious also about Brennan Brisson and if he's going to sign an entry-level contract because Vegas.
I think he's like the last Michigan guy. They've all basically,
He is, and he's in
and he's
Henderson.
been lighting it up.
Yep. I think he's perfectly suited for the AHL, or at least he might be better than the AHL. But of course, the Golden Knights are in a playoff race, unlike some of these, Owen Power, Bordeleau in San Jose, Kent Johnson with Columbus and whatnot. And so I'll be interested if he signs. I think he probably will, but who knows if he'll play or not. So anyway, we'll see with Brisson. But it'll be funny if actually Brisson was the one who did not sign his ELC because, of course, his dad is the agent and his dad is also Brisson's agent. It's like, Dad, come on. Could you negotiate?
Could you do something for me? Dad, he's like, I'll get to you soon. I have other things to worry about. But you wonder too, just like with the Golden Knights, where they were in such a cap crunch. We talked about how bad the Sharks cap crunch is. It's nothing compared to what Vegas is going to have to deal with. So for them, that extra year of ELC just buys them a little bit longer until they have to do something. But let's talk about Bordeleau's actual game. So you had a really great article about how, even though there was some negatives, it was his first game, you're expecting negatives. He's not going to be but you could just see his IQ and his ability. Like you kind of see why he's such a highly touted prospect coming out of Michigan with Bordeleau. What was kind of your kind of favorite or things that really kind of piqued your interest with Bordeleau's play?
I think the play in particular was the one that I just put on Twitter. It's actually his turnover that led to the Jared Spurgeon goal. And you don't commonly say, oh, that's a good thing that he did. But he did do a good thing. He looked toward the right wing Gregor, and then he passed it the other way to Balzers. And I think, though, his pass had a little bit too much zip. A lot of people on Twitter are blaming Balzers for that. That's not all on Balzers. Like, that pass has to be a little more touch, a little easier for Balzers to
it's also these guys haven't played together.
Right, that's part of it too, right? Yeah, I'm not sure if Balzers maybe was thinking that might be a direct pass instead of a rim. It doesn't really matter. But Bordeleau's thinking though was right on that play. Just didn't work out. And anyway, I like that just as an example of just his hockey mind. And there's a couple other clips that I did not put up there just because I don't want the article to be too long. But one of them was I think I don't remember the whole situation, but basically though, he's coming down. I think Gregor is skating down the middle. It's sort of maybe a 2-on-1 for a brief second in the offensive zone. And then Bordeleau, as he's coming down with the puck along the right wing, he kind of drags the puck between his legs as if he's going to do something there. And that's sort of that deceptiveness that, and we talked to Nick Flohr, the U.S. development coach, right? I think October 2020, I quoted that in my article that Bordeleau this was a couple years ago that Nick Flohr was talking about, just skilled in terms of that deception, making you think one way, sending you a different message. And so just in that play in particular where he what is that? That was your alarm.
It's all right. That is you.
Oh, hold on. Oh, that is me. Oh, this is an alarm for our podcast. Just so you know how much I care about this podcast, JD. I set this for our 8 o'clock, our
Podcast.
original recording time. So yeah, I was gonna get ready 15 minutes before JD.
Unlike
for
Kyle.
you.
Kyle
Yeah.
shows up Kyle anyway.
But anyway, though, so that play, he pulls it between his legs, and you look at that, it's like, well, why would he do that? Why would he waste his time, trying out a move that he's obviously not going to execute? But what does that do? That sends a different message to the defender. Defender think, oh wait, he's going to shoot right here, things like that. That pull the defender out, and in the end, the pass didn't complete. That's part of what Bordeleau still needs to, of course, learn. And NHL is a much different league, higher competition than the NCAA. But I like those little things that he does. Those different messages that he sends. I think another thing I would add on top of it too is that I think we saw this with Willie Mecklin too. So I think it's interesting how these two you can parallel them in terms of just their hockey IQ is definitely pro level, and I think it's both NHL level. But I think for both, though, there's going to be that sort of that physical thing that they've got to work on, obviously, to be good to great NHL players.
Yeah. We'll kind of finish up with Bordeleau and get into our GM talk here in just a second. But first, got to take a quick break and talk about our good friends over at BetOnline. BetOnline, your number one source for your sports betting news information from all your latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of Major League Baseball season. BetOnline's got you continued source for your sports wagering information from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. So head over to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. I think you just like Bordeleau because he made Gregor look better, and as a lifelong Noah Gregor truther.
I am not a lifelong Noah Gregor truther. I was not that big a fan of his the first couple of years, honestly.
You took the torch from Erik.
Exactly. Erik was the one who was the big Gregor truther, and I see Erik now is talking about just let that guy go. Don't even qualify.
He's too old to begin the training. So
exactly. So now that all of Noah Gregor's friends have abandoned him in his darkest hour, I'm here. So I'm here for you, Noah.
Sheng is here for Noah. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting with Bordeleau. I assume he's going to get a run here for the rest of the kind of season. I actually liked the Rudy Gregor combo with him. I think all those guys kind of play really well. Especially utilizing, and that line's deceptively fast too.
Right.
Especially with Nick Bonino, who kind of was anchoring that line before, and Bonino is going to be way more defensively responsible, but I think Bordeleau provides an offensive spark that the Sharks have really been missing. And right now, this team just struggles to score goals. So I think having Bordeleau out there, especially for games that don't mean anything, having him kind of run that third line right now, why not, right?
Yeah. No, Bob actually put it well, I thought, last night when he said that both Balzers and Gregor are north-south players. Bordeleau is definitely not a north-south guy. He's an east-west guy. So it's a good kind of blend of styles right there.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll be excited to all aboard the Bordeleau hype train as it continues to roll on. But I think the other big news, happened a couple of weeks ago with Doug Wilson stepping down, is now the Sharks for the first time in forever are looking for a new general manager. And there's been some kind, you had apparently the Sharks, they offered Jeff Gorton in the off season.
Well, I want to clarify, I don't know if they offered him the GM position. It was over
they were
summer. They offered him something
to him.
Yeah.
Yes. So and then there's been some other names kind of thrown out, the Arizona assistant general manager, I'm totally blanking on his name right now,
John Ferguson Jr.
Yes. So what is, I know this is going to be a very, very slow process, but, I know Joe Will's in on the hiring process. So it kind of feels like they're trying to find a GM who's going to fit in there, right? If you're Joe Will, you're not going to hire somebody who's going to turn around and fire, like, kind of clean house, right? Is that what it seems like the direction is going right now?
The only thing that I understand that must be, or the GM must come in with, is he must believe that this Sharks team can win and win next year. That might dissuade a few candidates, to put it kindly. But I'm sure there's going to be candidates who if they had the choice, they would blow up the Sharks, but they also will take this job and under that kind of those parameters. And so I think that's the big thing that you need to do as a GM here. I don't think Joe Will's job is in danger. I mean, look, if you come in, yeah, I guess you will have to work with Joe Will. I don't think there's any intention to let him go, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a co-GM kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I sort of thought at first, the initial press conference with Joe Will and Jonathan Becker, that I thought something like that might evolve. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense that if you want to make this job attractive to somebody, you've got to, and I think Elliot Friedman has alluded to this too, that it's a job that, you've got to give the new GM the right to pick his own players and things like that,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that also includes, unless a GM wants to work in some kind of cooperative relationship with Joe Will, but that's kind of unusual to have two GMs of kind of equal power, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think that what's going to happen is going to be something like that. I think that it's going to be somebody that will have power to do different things within the organization, but the one thing he cannot do, or she cannot do, is rebuild.
Yes.
So as long as you don't do that, then you're all good. And again, that comes from, I think I've received more clarity over the last a few months or so, right? A lot of people always say, "Oh, it's Doug who won't do this. Doug won't rebuild." I don't think it's
the
Doug.
owner.
It's Hasso. It's Hasso. Yeah. If Doug Wilson, I believe, is a smart hockey man. I think if you talk with Doug Wilson, if you catch him at sort of a private moment and he just told you, he probably would at least understand. He probably would see that, yeah, if you could rebuild, if it was easy, I've always said this, if it was easy to rebuild, I think the Sharks would do that. So anyway, so if it was easy, I think Doug would have done it. Even though it's not easy, it has been easy over the last couple of years. If you gave Doug that option, maybe he would have taken that. But I don't think that was an option for Doug. And so Doug tried to work with sort of that directive, right? Okay, we've got to try to keep winning, do what we can. In this case, I think what he chose, what he, I guess, convinced the owner of was to sort of take almost like a 2-year pause. And, let's rebuild our draft picks. Let's get some young guys in here. And hopefully they can start to help us in 2-3 years. And hopefully our big contract guys, from Erik Karlsson to Logan Couture or whatever, are still pretty decent. And so we can kind of meld these two together to form a competitive team. I think that was sort of the general idea or gist of the reset. So anyway, a new GM coming in. I think another thing too that it dawned on me too is how do you attract somebody to the job? And I don't think you're going to attract somebody to the job. This is just my opinion. This is not anything that I have gathered from it's not me reporting, not me gathering from a source, but unlike a lot of your listeners, probably, I think Bob Boughner has actually done a pretty good job as Sharks head coach this year. And I think if Doug Wilson had remained as the Sharks GM, I think Bob's job was safe. I think a lot of people within the Sharks, and I think that at least in the industry, they see a Sharks team that is woefully undermanned, that Bob has done his part to keep competitive for the better part. Even now, right? This 10-game losing streak they're on, right? Embarrassing, yes, but
I mean, they're playing way better. I will, I'm not the biggest Bob fan, but like, if you look at the way the Sharks played at the end of last year, when they were, they ended the season and they were just like unwatchable. At least now, I know moral victories and stuff like that at the time of year doesn't matter, but like, I mean, they're playing well against much better teams, and it's good to see at least the rookies. I think, at least for me personally, is like with the Bob thing is like the season's been over for a little while. Like, why are we not letting some of these rookies kind of get through these rookie mistakes? And I know you got to hold you guys accountable and stuff like that, but it's like at some point you just gotta let these kids run and kind of figure out what they are and what they aren't. And that I think that's, at least that's my thing with Bob, is letting some of these kids learn. And I know, for him, he's still trying to win games, and that's his job, is to try to win games. And but that's my Bob thing
Well,
right now.
there's the balance thing.
Yeah.
It's going away from the question, but I'll give you an example. Like Thomas Bordeleau, like he played, I think, like 3 minutes in the third period yesterday, but he
Yeah.
wasn't benched or anything like that. I think
No, they
people
were trying to win the game. They were
yeah,
playing
and how can you justify this to say a Thomas Bordeleau? Like we're in a 10-game, we're about to lose our 10th straight game, and you're just running out. You're just rolling the line just to give the rookie his time. No, we're trying to win. Like that's why a defensive zone face-off with the third line. I saw this at least once. Thomas Bordeleau centered balls in McGregor because they're trying to win the face-off, get out of the zone. Maybe if they win the face-off, get into the zone, then maybe Bordeleau will come off for Bordeleau, midship. But those are the kind of things where,
like I get that, but it's and it's like Ryan Merkley. I don't want to make this a Ryan Merkley conversation, but where it's like Ryan Merkley and Ryan Merkley, it can be from shift to shift, even on the same shift where he does these amazing things and then he makes a mistake, and it feels like he makes a mistake and his punishment seems to be harsher than other players' punishments. And
depends on what player you're talking about, though, right? Because the most frequent one I hear is Brent Burns.
And Brent Burns is
ridiculous.
It's a different
league of player. It's a different league. It's not even earned it. Like if you watch Brent Burns closely, yes, he makes some bad mistakes, but if you watch all the good plays,
of the time that starfish works every time.
I don't care about the starfish thing, but if you count all the good plays he makes, little passes, little defensive things where he's tough to beat in the zone,
stuff
you add all these things together, like it's a very rough math, right? So I need to watch the tape and make sure that my math is right. And I'm going to say this about Erik Karlsson too, and Erik Karlsson is healthy. That even these days when these guys aren't Norris guys anymore, like 8 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, or 9 play, or if there's 10 plays. That little plays, big plays that Erik Karlsson or Brent Burns makes, it's going to be a good play, 8 or 9 of them. Okay, Ryan Merkley is not at that ratio. When he gets to that ratio, then he's going to be safe. He's going to be allowed to make his mistake. But I wrote an article about this recently, right? Everyone was like, "Oh my God, the Edmonton game, right?" Ryan Merkley got benched because he gave up that shorthanded goal. No, he wasn't. That wasn't why. Everyone could see that shorthanded goal wasn't. Merkley did not play the 2-on-1 great, but obviously, yes, Brent Burns doesn't always play 2-on-1 greats either, and he doesn't get benched, right? So that wasn't why he got benched. He got benched for the stuff before that, and I showed the clips before that. And so anyway, so that's barking up the wrong tree. Now, if you want to compare Ryan Merkley to a Nicholas Meloche, we want to have this conversation. Then
I do not want to have this conversation right now. But
we can. But see, that's a more relevant comparison. But again, if we break down the plays one by one, it wouldn't surprise me. And I haven't done this. I will be honest. I haven't watched play by play, for Nicholas Meloche or Ryan Merkley, like every single second, right?
But save that for nice July afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually,
come to bed. Sorry, I have to watch Meloche Merkley plays right now.
Sorry, baby, I gotta watch Nicholas Meloche. but anyway, though, I think that when you add it all up, you can start to see why Ryan Merkley isn't. Ryan Merkley his game has flaws, and so some coach might give Merkley a little more run, but I don't think I don't know. I don't really believe that there's any coach out there who will be like, hey, Ryan Merkley, here, play 25 minutes that you have not earned. I don't think that's good teaching, in my opinion. So Bob might be a little tougher, but I mean, look, like we've seen a lot of NHL coaches, right? Like, do you really think a new guy is going to be that different in this way? No, most coaches are going to be, hey, earn your time.
St. Louis, he's the only coach.
I haven't followed a San Louis enough. I know people like what he's done
he just likes small boys who score goals, and Ryan Merkley could do that. So before we finish up,
let me finish up that one thing. That whole point about the GM, though. Let me just finish that. Sorry about that. Yeah. So the one thing that dawned on me is that for a new GM, I think though that you don't want to necessarily have a coach that isn't your coach, especially since this coach has, at least on record, his results have not been impressive at all. And so you can talk about how Bob has got guys to play hard, et cetera, et cetera. I think he has, but is that going to be enough for him to keep his job? I'm thinking maybe not. And so that's one thing that I think that I will be wrong about, because when it all first happened, I was thinking, maybe it will be like you're saying, maybe it'll be a little bit of a co-GM-ish approach or somebody, or they're going to hire somebody that isn't that, how do you say, powerful or whatever,
Yeah,
right? That Joe Will or whatever can have more seniority over or whatever, right? But no, actually, I don't think so. Let's say you bring in a John Ferguson Jr., right? Very experienced guy, was director of scouting for the Sharks 2008 to 14, was Toronto Maple Leafs GM too. And you tell him you can't hire or fire your own coach.
He's not gonna take our job,
Right,
right?
right. So Bob might have a year where he gets a shot, where
Mhm.
the new GM recognizes, hey, there are some improvements under this guy. Let's give this guy a shot. But he's not going to be the new GM's guy though, probably. And so so that's one thing that sort of dawned on me. But anyway,
I think too. Also, it'll be a lot with the timing of the hiring. So if the GM, if he's hired kind of later in the process, I
sure.
think that gives Bob a little bit extra time, because all of your potential coaching candidates might be kind of vacant, or all the coaching spots might be filled up, type of thing. Where if the GM gets hired kind of earlier in the process, then there might still be a coach that he wants to bring over or something like that. So
That's a good point. Yeah, because they talked about the process. It's unclear when it will end, that sort of thing. And so there's no rush to get a guy before the draft. They've said, and they're pretty confident with their amateur staff led by Doug Wilson Jr., of course. So I think that is a good point. Yeah, if they make this GM hire, let's say right after the draft, then it could be sayonara Bob. But if they make this the hire, like let's say in like late August, right before training camp, right? Well, that's gonna be
they're not going to hire a new coach.
That's gonna be a
Because
little tough.
you're not gonna be able to find within the coaching staff, type of thing. So, all right, let's take a quick break. Talk about our friends over at rockauto.com. If you like Sheng, you drive around to the rink all the time. You're driving to Vegas and Anaheim and LA. Sometimes you gotta make sure your car is all up to date. That's where rockauto.com comes in. With increasing mix of car mix and miles, it's impossible to go to your local chain store and then for them to carry everything you need. You go up there, they ask you what type of car you have, does your car go brr, et cetera, and you don't have to worry about that. You have a computer with access to rockauto.com in your home and in your pocket. So with rockauto.com, you save time and money. You save up to 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. They're a family business with serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Sheng likes to do it himself. So head over to their website today. Find the solution to your car or auto part needs. When you go to rockauto.com, see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked on in their How'd You Hear About Us box. That way they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Sheng, the floor is yours. What is interesting you with the last 2 weeks of the season here? What are you watching the most?
Well, it's always the young players, and so be it Ryan Merkley or Nicholas Milosh. I wrote a little something about them a couple of days ago, or Thomas Bordeleau. So that's gonna, it'll be interesting to see how he kind of adjusts to the league and whatnot. And want to see him on the power play. That was the one disappointing thing.
He got like 40 seconds of power play time. Yeah, and a power play is a hot mess.
Yeah. Also, I want to see him in overtime too, but I didn't get a chance with that too. I don't know if he would have been in there too. But yeah,
the Matt Nieto overtime thing. I know you wrote an article about defending it, buddy. You're trying to you play to win the game, and you win the game by scoring goals.
Well, again, it's not what I would have done, and I made that clear in my article that I think you start with your best. But again, the reasoning is not daft though. You basically give up your first matchup. It's going to be to a Kaprizov or a McDavid in an Edmonton game, right? You recognize you're not going to win that, even if your best players may not win that, because they
didn't even touch the puck again.
I know, I get you.
Game. They didn't even touch it.
Well, they did it. They did in the Edmonton game though. But anyway, though, so that idea, then you can have that. You can win the matchup with the second when you roll the lines, when it's going to be Hurdle Meyer versus whoever the second.
But if you don't get to the first match,
no, I know. Again, I'm just explaining the reasoning. The reasoning to me is
Sheng Peng. He's got the Noah Gregor torch in one hand, the Bob Boughner torch in the other hand.
I'm just saying I understand.
And the Matt Nieto one is right behind. Let's go.
Well, my back is in pain carrying all this.
Yeah, Matt Nieto, overtime specialist.
Yeah. So anyway, though, I wonder. Yeah, I do wonder who he would have gone with, because I think when the goal was scored I think it was Spurgeon, right? I think
Yeah, he got
Hurdle
the
was
tip
out
off.
there. I assume Meyer would have been next. And then who knows who the third pairing's been sort of a mixture of just whoever's playing
Whoever's playing
well.
well, yeah.
So maybe it would have been Gregor and Bordeleau. I don't know. That would have been fun. But I just wanted to see Bordeleau just with his space and just see what he would have done. That's all. Yeah. So
The baby line of like Gregor, Bordeleau, Merkley,
yeah.
just all fat, just all speed.
But yeah, so in terms of what I'm watching, it's just all the young players. I honestly like unless they do something big or amazing, I don't really watch the vet because I know we kind of know
You
what
know
they
what you're
can
getting
do.
from
Right,
these
yeah,
guys.
and so and that's no discredit to them. On I think it was the Nieto goal. Burns and Couture were great on that. They back check hard and they got it up to Bonino. Bonino made a nice soft backhand pass to Nieto for that goal. So things like that, you'll see things like that. But in terms of like the subtle stuff, though, like a lot of times, when I go to a Barracuda game, right, I don't watch the action. I'll just pick one player at a time to watch on the ice, just whoever interests me. And so that's sort of what I'm doing now. So whoever's on the ice for the Sharks, and there's going to be a young player almost at every second. So
Constantly, yes.
constantly, right? So be it a Jeffrey VL to a Ryan Merkley. I want to see what they're doing right or wrong, in the defensive zone, all the zones. And so that's sort of what's interesting about now. And I don't find it actually like I don't know. Maybe I'm just a rink rat. I like the season kind of going on and just watching hockey and just watching these guys and trying to figure out which of these guys is going to be meaningful to the Sharks next year if the Sharks indeed do make a playoff push. I don't know. For me right now, I would say I do think Gregor is good enough to be in a winning lineup, like a fourth liner. I don't think he's, he has a potential, I think, to be a third liner, but I don't know if he will reach that potential.
With Bordeleau dragging him along, you can't.
I think that's really rough to rely on he'd be 21-year-old to be your third line center next year. That's what the Sharks have been doing for the last 3 years or at least a couple of years before, is just giving young guys these jobs and say, hey, figure it out.
You got it, right?
Yeah. So I if they want to win, I don't think that's the best way for them to do it. But yeah, and then everybody else, I'm sort of not as sure about. I don't know. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Jonathan Dahlen, of course, is interesting, but I think Dahlen has to be more like the guy he was in the first half, obviously, which he has not been.
I thought he's looked better playing with Meyer and Hurdle. I liked his game. He's kind of, you see him going into like the scrappy area.
Yeah. No, there's a little bit of that, but I think with him though, it's always going to be about getting shots and chances. And I thought his first game back was better than the last game in Minnesota. And so and he's getting to play with the best players too. And so he doesn't have sort of that excuse, right? And so so I think he really needs to kind of solidify his place, he's gonna get a chance in training camp anyway. But it'll be nice though. I'm sure you guys
build some confidence.
I'd like to see him be a little more have a sure place in the lineup. And he can do that over the next few games. So that's what you're watching, just guys like that. So yeah.
A couple quick fire questions. Adin Hill, RIP. Is he gone for the rest of the season, I assume?
We have to assume so. We haven't asked about Adin Hill in about a week or so.
Yeah.
Last check though, he still wasn't even on the ice. And it had been, I think, at that point, it had been 3 weeks since he had been on the ice. We
no idea what's actually hit.
Yeah, we just know it's lower body. It's just whatever it's nagging him. I mean, it's really unfortunate because he would have been the perfect guy, like a Kakinen, right, where we can see what this guy has in the end of the season. That's one of the things to watch, right?
Yep.
Because we kind of know what Reimer is, or at least what Reimer has meant to the Sharks this year, and so he's not going to, really add to that or take away from that in the next 8 games or so here. But Adin Hill could have come in and had a nice stretch of games like Kakinen has had, and sort of show, hey, this is why the Sharks sent a second-round draft pick for me, and this is why you should keep me over Reimer or a Kakinen. So I'm gonna guess. We'll check with Bob. They're back at home, more regular practice. I'm sure one of us will think to check in on him. So
Scott Reedy, is he as handsome as he looks on TV up in person?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, good.
Confirmed.
Couldn't confirm. Erik Karlsson, all the injury guys: Karlsson, Barabanov, Simek, I know Karlsson and Simek got sent home. Barabanov stayed. Do you think we might have seen the last of some of these guys for the season?
It would make sense with Simek and
Karlsson.
Karlsson. I'm sure Simek will want to get back because again, he's another guy. I know people
Kind of fighting for that spot. Yeah.
people hate that he was in the lineup. You know, a lot more. There was a lot more anger expended when Simek played over Dahlin than there was when Simek played over VLs. Just want to note that, yeah, because both are young players. Just want to remind both are kind of inexperienced players that kind of could use that development. But anyway, though, with Simek, though, you know, you got to feel for the guy because he didn't play for almost a month, right? And he's embracing
go play wing for the first time.
Right,
Embracing,
you know, that role, making jokes about being the next Rafi Torres, you know. So that's one thing I got to say about Simek, you know, wherever his game has gone from, you know, 2018-19, man, his English is way better, and he was hilarious in that press conference. So 2018-19, you know, they wouldn't send him out for a press conference because he wasn't ready for that, and so that's something that he's worked on. So that's great to see that kind of where he's cracking jokes all over the place. So anyway, so we'll see. We'll get more of an update probably tomorrow. They had the day off today. We'll ask about Karlsson and Simek, I think, on Sunday, but there was no update at that point. It would probably make sense just to sort of shut them down if there's any kind of question mark, right? I'm sure Simek will want to get back in the lineup though, just so he can play some games in all. And the other guy, Barabanov, I would assume Barabanov, because Barabanov is still on this trip. He did not go home. And so I think there's a chance that he should, you know, get back into the lineup by the end of the season. Though he's another guy that I think he's put up enough this season going into his free agent year that he doesn't need to do anything more. He's kind of made a very good case for himself, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Last question. How long does the winning or the losing streak go? We're at 10 games right now. They play the Blue Jackets on Tuesday, the Blues on Thursday, and then they play Chicago and Vegas this weekend.
This week is the setup, right? You got Columbus tomorrow. Columbus is a 500 team, but you know they're not a great team. Yeah. And you have Chicago again on Saturday. So this week is definitely the setup to squash this losing streak. I'm gonna say it ends tomorrow. One of the things that's interesting though is that when it reached 8 in Chicago, because we all saw Chicago, like that's where it's got to end.
That's
And predictably, they go into Dallas and they actually played well. You know, they didn't get blown out in any of those. I mean, better than they didn't get blown out. I mean, let's give them credit. Yeah. Like Minnesota jumped them for a couple goals early. It looked like this game could get ugly, right? The Sharks fought, and they were bad in the first period of that game too. They fought.
Yeah, but they were really good that second period.
They were really good in that second period, right? So. And so anyway, like I mentioned a few articles too. So November, the last time they lost 10 in a row was, of course, right before they acquired Joe Thornton, November 5th through 30th.
So Thornton's coming through the door, right?
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't want to write this because it's obviously
it's too much. But I know what you're thinking.
Comparison. Yeah, exactly right. Like the Dallas game was a loss. Then they're bringing in a center. But they didn't win though. So if they had won, then we could have made the Thomas Bordeleau the new
the hype train would have
been
insane. Then, yes.
He's a bit of a baby size of Joe Thornton. So instead of Jumbo, I guess Dumbo, right? So anyway.
Well, you had little Joe for Pavelski, so right. I don't know, like minuscule Bordeleau. I don't know, baby Bordeleau. We'll have to workshop this off there. So.
Yeah, we workshop this off there. But anyway, though, so we kind of, it's going to be tough to win those games against Dallas and Minnesota. So now at 10. So if they lose tomorrow, it's going to be the worst losing streak since the expansion era. So in the first 2 years were very rough on the Sharks, obviously. Yeah. I think they won like 28 games in 2 years. These are 82-game seasons, by the way. There's no lockouts or COVID seasons there. Anyway, so 28 games in 2 years. They had a 17-game losing streak, and they had 3 13-game losing streaks. So goals for the Sharks this year. Now, they have 7 games left, I think, so... So they can't break the record, but
they can tie. I think, I know. I went through the schedule. I think I had them winning against I haven't beating the Blue Jackets. I had them beating Chicago, and I think I had them beating the Ducks, but that was about it for the end of the season.
Oh, hey, holy! So we're going for a winning week this week, right?
I got 6 points. 6 points in the last 7 games. So yes, Sheng. Thank you, of course, as always, for coming on. Where can the people find you?
You can find me at San Jose Hockey Now, the premier podcast of the Bay
I'm
Area team is
that.
Hockey Now podcast, and also all my stuff at NBC Sharks.
Yes. Also, I do have one bone to pick. Every time I click on one article and then it's, you can read the rest of this on the other one, and I always pick the wrong one anyway. So yes, you always make me having to do.
That sounds
clicks.
like your problem and not mine. And that sounds like you're helping me by clicking more.
Clicks,
click,
yes.
guys.
I'm half expecting it's like the choose your own adventure clicks where it's like, oh, if you want this one, go to this website, or if you want this one, go to this website.
If you want Evander Kane back to the Sharks, pick A. If you want Evander Kane's cap hit cleared off the Sharks cap,
click B. Yes.
If you want a settlement, pick C.
I'm expecting that on the next article now. Of course, you can find us at Locked On Sharks on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can also, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, you're listening to us right now. Of course, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can find me at my fry hole. Kyle is at Kyle Demetrius. Again, thank you guys for making us your first listen. Go check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast or the Locked On NHL Now, or any of the other amazing podcasts, such as we'll go Locked On Angels for Sheng Peng is one of his favorite teams as a child. So, Sheng, as always, thank you, buddy.